What a pleasure. In the studio is the great man himself. It's former Tory guru and now Reform UK luminary, Tim Montgomerie. Welcome, Tim.
Well, I don't know whether you should be grateful for me being in the studio, Kev, because I'm actually full of cold, so...
Oh, great.
I try not
Tomorrow I'll be sitting here with a handkerchief, taking his name in vain. Let's talk about America, talk about yesterday. What an extraordinary day that was. We can have some reflections on some of the drama, some of the pomp and ceremony in just a little while. But for me, I rather like most of his policies, probably all of them actually. But what I loved was just as he delivered his inauguration speech, the look on the faces of the Democrats behind him, on the faces of the Bidens, the Clintons, Obama. He literally took their world, their woke world, their metropolitan elite world, and he ripped it up and chucked it into the rubbish bin of history. Let's talk about what he got rid of. I don't know if you saw the moment later on when he was theatrically signing executive orders in front of a huge crowd.
And throwing the pens into the audience.
I know, it was
the health
amazing,
and safety people would have a big problem with that.
Yeah. So let's just go through some of it. Basically, I think he delivered America from the woke madness of sort of Democrat liberal lunacy. For too many years, they've been imposing their metropolitan elite ideas on bemused Americans. We are still getting it here in Britain.
Yeah.
But what did he rip up yet? This is what happened. Net zero, dead. Drill, baby, drill. Paris Climate Treaty, ditched. Only 2 genders under law. Mass deportations. Borders sealed. Working from home banned. And so much more. It was sort of magnificent, wasn't it? It was like everything we've ever wanted.
You're completely right about the Democrats, exceeding their mandate as well. I think there was a poll that showed that 78% of Democrat voters disapproved of their transgender agenda and they just went too far. And I think it was very important, actually, not just for America, but for the whole free world, that someone just stood up. It's a bit like the emperor has no clothes. So enough.
Yes, you're right.
They just went absolutely too far. And people, how long have people, Kev, been cowed into not being able to say what they think on a whole range of issues about race, about gender, about family, about, traditional values. And Donald Trump says stuff that so many other people wish they could say and now can say again, and it's liberating.
And he returned America, I think, to common sense. I mean, that's the trouble with all this the trans politics, identity politics, all of this wokery. It doesn't make any sense, and to normal people, and I don't use that term advisedly, I mean normal people, and you know what I mean. To be told that this bloke with a beard wearing a dress is a woman, ordinary people are going, what? And yet, on pain of death, did we say, well, it's not really a woman, is it? It's a bloke with a beard. Oh, you can't say that. I mean, he is delivering America from a kind of madness into the sort of sunlight of common sense.
And one of the most sort of common sense things he said yesterday was, I'm not going to impose costs on American industry to tackle climate change when a country like China is continuing to build coal-fired power stations at an extraordinary rate. They're not doing their contribution to climate change, so why should American businesses, why should American pensioners struggling to heat their own homes suffer? And of course, what we're going to have now, unfortunately, Kev, over the next 4 years, is this massive contrast between America going in a direction I think both of us would approve of, common sense on the environment, common sense on immigration, common sense on crime, and we, of course, have got Ed Miliband, Rachel Reeves, David Lammy, taking Britain in a completely different direction. And it's not something I would like to happen. I'd much rather Britain was in tune with America. But we can almost have a laboratory experiment where we can see where these Labour policies take our country and where Trump's policies take America. And I can say to you now, I'll come back onto your programme and eat my hat and eat my hoodie. But if this doesn't show Britain in a bad light the next few years, we are going to go down even further. You look at the last 15 years, Europe and America GDP per head about 15 years ago was similar. Now America's gone streets ahead, and it's largely because of the cost of energy. We've imposed upon our continent extraordinarily high energy prices, and it's only about to get a lot more worse from a European perspective.
And of course, Donald is saying drill, baby, drill. So he wants much more oil exploration under the ground of America, under the earth there. There's a lot still there. Liquid gold, as he quite rightly called it. Black gold, they sometimes call it.
Shale gas in particular.
Yeah, but don't forget, their Americans' energy bills were already historically low because actually Obama started this fracking. Frack, baby, frack. Never mind drill, baby, drill. And they unearthed so much shale gas, so much underground power, that they've got cheap energy now for about 125, maybe 150 years. And by the sickest of ironies, really, we're buying that energy from America, us having polished our halos and banned fracking because somehow or other it was going to cause an earthquake in Blackpool. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call in the trade a complete crock of crap. So here we are, punishing ourselves with these virtue signalling policies, whereas America is going in exactly the opposite direction. Their energy prices are going to get even cheaper. And what are we going to say to Ed Miliband now, who always, when we make that point that you just made, look, China's chucking out 28% of the world's carbon emissions, the biggest polluter in the world, 28%. India, Brazil, Russia, America, still chucking them out. And of course, Ed said, well, it's very important that we show the way. We are world leaders. You know, people will be inspired to follow us. So what do we say to Ed now? How did you get on inspiring Donald Trump to follow you with your mad net zero lunacy? How did you get on there? His policy is, you know, inherently shown there to be nonsense.
We're old enough, I think, Kev, to remember what the big divide was in the 1980s between sort of America and some of the left here. They wanted us to give up our nuclear weapons in the hope that somehow that would encourage the Soviet Union, as then was, to give up their nuclear weapons. What it would have done was just leave Britain defenceless. I think basically what Labour are doing now is the equivalent of that for our age, and it amounts to unilateral economic disarmament. What we are saying is we're going to impose costs on us that no one else is willing to impose on them. You know, Britain has perhaps we supposedly have the cleanest footprint now of any European country. But how have we done that? We've exported our industrial capacity to other parts of the world who are producing goods for us, probably in a more dirty way, or certainly in a more dirty way than we would have done. And I'm afraid what we have got with Ed Miliband's policies is that we have shouldered British business and British pensioners with burdens that other countries in the world quite sensibly won't impose. And now America is going to show a different way.
Yeah, and you know, he said at one point, Donald Trump, in one of his speeches, one of his many speeches...
It's not bashful, is it?
That we're not going to take it anymore. It's a quote from that film Network, great film with Peter Finch in it. We're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. And you said that when he made these speeches yesterday, lifting this veil of wokery and net zero and all of the nonsense from, you know, a dark period of American history, really, it was as if it was the emperor's new clothes. People going, well, yes, we've been saying this for years. Well, people in this country have been saying it for years, and yet, like the Americans, we have still been kind of just rolling over and letting these virtue signalling politicians ruin our lives to make them feel good about themselves. We allowed the wokery because we were browbeaten into having to accept it. But all the time inside we're going, no, this is mad. This is mad. Well, he has ended the madness in America, and I suspect it will lead to the madness ending here, and that puts Starmer and his woke crew in trouble, I think.
Well, I think probably last year in America was probably the worst year for the left in recent times. It wasn't just Trump winning in the election. You also had, a lot of the universities. Do you remember the university heads that went in front of a tribunal in Congress to defend the anti-Semitism that was basically taking place? They've all been got rid of. You look at the tragedy of what's happened in Los Angeles. It's not just to do with climate change. You could believe it's climate change, but it's also to do with terrible management of that city.
Oh, God, yeah.
I mean, and
Democrat management.
Absolutely. We all know what California... When, the votes are being counted in the US election, California is always last. It takes them much longer to count. The administration of these places is terrible. We've seen American cities with Democrats in charge lose control of the battle against crime and drugs, and almost on every sort of front that they fought last time. And I think it's a great encouragement to the right, to what I would regard as sensible people around the world. America has shown, often as it does, it's the leader of the free world in more ways than one. It's shown a way forward. But just one question for you, Kevin. You said you agree with most of what Trump put forward. Where are you on the tariffs?
That's question? The one area where I think
sniffing away here.
That's okay. That I get where he's coming from, but he wants to improve the cost of living crisis. I suspect that charging tariffs to every country you deal with will lead to soaring prices and probably inflation. So I think there are problems with his tariff threats, but the thing about old Donald is, he says a lot.
Doesn't always deliver.
He doesn't always deliver.
Would you be happy with them against China? Because I can see a case for them against China, because China does not compete fairly at all. But when he starts imposing them against us, against Europe, I think that's a step too far.
Yeah, I think I would allow him to have a go at China.
We'll give him a green light.
But I'll give him a green. Yeah, Donald, you're all right. Me and Tim have decided we're going to give you the go-ahead. But I don't really want to be bracketed with China.
No.
When he says, I'm going to put a 25% tariff on everyone, it's as if he's saying Canada and Britain and France are the same as China. Well, that isn't the case. No. So, but I mean, with Donald, he says a lot. Let's see what actually he does. But I think he will do a lot of the what he's said he will do in terms of the executive orders. I mean, I loved the very public signing of them. And then in the middle of it, you were watching it, he turned to the crowd again. Can you imagine Joe Biden doing this? I tell you, he is something.